In 2006, a teacher's strike in the state of Oaxaca occupied the central square of the capital city. Before long, the simmering resentments of race and social and economic inequality burst to the surface. Tens of thousands of people, including many poor Indians, joined the teachers until several months later, the governor of the state and head of the ruling PRI party, Ulysses Ruiz, crushed the uprising with brutal force.
I mean, I think you're right that these brutal regimes are brutal for a reason, and that's probably because the government policies and the economy have gotten to the point where there is no legitimacy, and so you have to resort to force. Regardless of anything I've said, the cards are stacked in favor of those with power, with wealth and power, and with that comes the ability to use military force. I mean, there is no easy solution to that. You know, there are examples where people win against those odds, but very often they're massacred, right? And the struggle dies and then comes out again another day.
So this is October 1, 2007, and we're in the central square, the Zocalo of Oaxaca City, Mexico. This is a pro-democracy demonstration. It's fairly large, although I was just talking to one person and he said this is small compared to demonstrations that have occurred in the past, which have spilled out into another 4 or 5 blocks. It's very peaceful so far, but in the city around the central square here, you see heavily armed police units, usually traveling in pickup trucks, half dozen to a dozen police sitting in the back of the pickup truck, almost all heavily armed, carrying M16s, machine guns, often wearing combat helmets and flak jackets. So there's definitely an air of intimidation, but so far things have gone pretty peacefully. Primarily this is against the state government here in Oaxaca, which is pre-PRI, the party that's been in power for the last 70 years. And the governor, his name is Ulysses Ruiz, and I guess he's pretty universally hated in these parts, and part of the demonstration is to try and get him out of government. But he's very firmly ensconced with the support of the Mexican president. His name is Calderon.
Bueno, yo soy hija de Meterio Marino Cruz. Él fue golpeado el día 16 de julio. A él lo golpean policías al servicio de Uro. Él en este momento su vida ha cambiado demasiado, ya que sufrió una fractura craneoencefálica, ¿no? Eso es lo que el gobierno hace cuando alguien aquí en Oaxaca alza la voz. Y aquí se ve que en Oaxaca no todo está resuelto.
El maldito gobierno puede orquestar la intimidación para que en las propias elecciones no salgamos a votar.
Porque como todos sabemos, en Oaxaca la situación que se está viviendo es muy dura y todo viene del gobierno, y no solo de Luis Ortiz, sino también de Felipe Calderón.
Que ya no queremos al PRI en Oaxaca, que ya no queremos al PAN en Oaxaca.
Porque mi mamá es maestra y también nos afecta a todos. Como ustedes saben, Oaxaca es uno de los estados donde las personas son pobres.
¿Qué quieren los presos políticos? ¿Qué quieren los presos políticos? ¡Libertad, libertad! ¡A los presos por luchar!
Entonces, ¿quién no va a regresar eso? El gobierno, claro que no, ni lo va a hacer. A él que le interesa lo que nos pase. Solamente manda a golpear y a matar y a encarcelar para que nos callemos la voz.
¿Cree que el APO y la gente van a ganar la lucha contra el gobierno?
Esperemos que sí. Sabemos que el gobierno tiene armas porque tiene dinero.
Sí.
Cuando manda a matar a las personas, cuando las manda a reprimir. Y se ve, sabemos que esta lucha no es fácil, ni ha sido fácil, pero la vamos a ganar.
Esa es la talla.
Yo me llamo Valentín.
¿Valentín?
Me llamo Leticia.
Luis.
Rubén.
Marcos.
Cada día al tarde hay cosas especiales que se pasan aquí, como soldados y políticos y todo eso. ¿Qué es eso?
Es que antes hubo un problema, apenas no tiene mucho tiempo. Tendrá como un año, ajá.
Sí.
Pero no sé, están vigilando y todo eso.
¿Cree que la situación aquí a Oaxaca es buena ahora o hay problemas?
Está estabilizando.
Several days after the previous demonstration, some of the leading members of the ruling PRI party, backed by the military, had a demonstration of their own. The Minister for State Security spoke in lofty terms about justice and the rule of law. Somewhat ironically, he felt the need to surround himself with soldiers while delivering these words, before beating a somewhat hasty retreat. The next day, another group held its own demonstration, also in the central square. Largely consisting of the ruling party's most vocal opponents, they displayed their disapproval on the government palace, which the governor had been forced to flee in the face of similar demonstrations the year before.
I think it's quite clear that the interests of elites are almost never the same as those of the rest of the population. In fact, they're often quite opposed. Same token, the interests of many other groups within society are usually different.
This is the Hotel San Felipe Mission, and this is the hotel where Ulysses Ruiz moved his government during the demonstrations of last year. As a matter of fact, it's a pretty affluent sort of area. Often you have not only gated villas, and you can see those around here. They're very nice houses, but the fact of the matter is that they're razor wire topped walls surrounding a lot of these houses.
Inequality exists as it does. Often, generally, those on top are doing well because those on the bottom are doing poorly. The wealth is generated from the exploitation of people below them, and so therefore there's always conflict, right?
Meanwhile, tourists continue to stay away. Few believe a workable resolution has been achieved. Look down, and the paving blocks pulled up for makeshift barricades are still visible. Look up, and the government's efforts to make its presence and power felt are evident circling above, not only during the day, but well into the night. In the next 40 years, 1 billion people are going to migrate because of global climate change, some, no doubt, here, on their trek north through the deserts of Mexico. But the chain of events that links climate change to a desperately poor person's decision to search for food and safety in some far-off land cannot really adequately be broken down into simple slogans.
It's a problem. It's an ecological problem. It's a scientific problem. It's an environmental problem. But since we tend to think about ourselves, at its core, I think it's really an ethical problem. And when we finally get around to struggling with that and dealing with that, I think then we'll have matured. We'll have, as a society, matured to the point where we're going, you know what, is it right or is it wrong to be doing this? We have the power. We have a responsibility that comes with power. Should we be doing it?
Some say it's not too late, that adequate and comprehensive solutions can be found in time. Meanwhile, in the deserts along the U.S. border, in an eerie reminder of repression further south, helicopters hover overhead, watching and waiting.